So what I'm going to do is I am going to round up all my little bits and pieces because that's what we're going to be using. So I went through all of my box and I took out all of the bits and pieces and scraps from the DSP that we had used for the box. So I had some extras, so I just pulled them all out. So I'm going to have them all put together and I'm going to show you how we're going to make some cards out of these. So I've decided I'm going to use some of the little squares here that I have left over. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut them down into the size. I want them to kind of go across. I'm going to make like a 4 square. But I need to make sure that they are all the same size. So I know this is going to be 4 across. So I'm going to cut these all down to the size of 2 inches each. So I'm going to get my paper cutter and I'm going to cut them down to the size of 2 inches each. Okay, put them all together. And I got more left over. I'll put them in my little scrap piles to use for something else. And what I'm going to do, I got my pieces, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut them down because I want them all to fit onto the paper. And I'm going to cut them to 2.5. So they are already at 2 inches. So I'm going to cut them down to 2.5. And I'm going to lay them out. There we go. And I'm going to kind of arrange them like so. And what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to glue them down. Okay. When I glue them down, I want to have a little bit of space around the edge. There we go. Okay. Now, it doesn't have to be perfect. Whatever you think looks good. I'm going to put that up a little bit. Now maybe what I'm going to do is just kind of move it over a little. I think I want them all touching in the center. So I'm just going to reposition those. And I'm going to put them a little closer. Like so. Okay. That's going to overlap a little bit. Now working with scraps is pretty easy because you really can't go too wrong with them. That one seems to be cut a little bit too small. So I'll just fiddle with it. And the idea of what I'm going to do on top of this, so now I got all 4 down. And that piece I had, that gold piece, is going to sit on top. And all I want to do is hide that, the center. I'm going to just put it in the center. There we go. And I'm going to get some white and I'm going to stamp my sentiment on that. I'm going to use one of my favorite colors, Pretty Peacock, to do my sentiment on. And I'm just going to grab something close by for my sentiment that I can put in. My favorite stamp sets is the Forever Fern. So I'm going to be using Pretty Peacock for the sentiment. And one of my favorite stamp sets is the Forever Fern. I'm going to use one of the sentiments from that. And I'm going to place it on the block. There we go. And I'm going to punch that out with a 2-inch punch, which is somewhere here. And there we go. That is going to fit in right inside that little circle very nicely. And I am done. And that's all I'm going to do for that card. If you want, you could always add a little bow. And then I'm going to pop it inside we're going to start in January, and that's going to go in there. So that's for one of the cards. The next one I'm going to make is going to be using some of the other DSP. So I'm just going to use one of the card strips here. And what I've decided to do is I'm going to have a little bit of strips on each side. So I'm going to grab, look for one that has like a nice pattern on it. So I'm just going to go through, and I'm just going to decide to use this one here. It's got a really nice pattern. And I'm going to cut it from the top, which is a 5.5. I'm going to do that for both pieces. Cut it at 5.5. So it's going to go from the top to the bottom. And 5.5. So I'm going to use both pieces here. And I'm going to, I guess I could cut that in half and save some of that paper. Because really what I'm going to do is just use it as a frame, so on each side. Going to have it like that, and I'm just going to turn it over, and I'm going to just tape it down a little bit. Just one to hold it in place. And I'm going to have a little bit peeking out. And do that for the other side. Also, a little bit of tape just to hold it. And then I can manipulate it and fold it back. And I'm going to add the adhesive underneath. Just makes it easier. The tape just makes it easier to hold. I'm going to glue this down onto the top there. So it's got a little bit on each side. Now, even though it's a little bit long, I'm just going to take my snips and just trim it up so it doesn't hang off. And again, I'm going to use some of the gold. Maybe I'm going to get some of the pieces out here. And it's just easy enough to pop out. So if I wanted to, I'm just going to use a couple, so just pop it out. Maybe I'll put that around. If not, lay some of these out. Maybe I want it like that. Oh, I think I like that better. It's kind of tough, huh? They're just so pretty. Now I wonder what would happen. I'm just going to get my 2-inch punch and see what it's going to look like if I pop in a 2-inch punch under that. Maybe that's what I'll do, is I'm just going to use that. I'm going to use some ribbon. So again, use my favorite color, Pretty Peacock. There's no Pretty Peacock ink in here, so maybe I'll move on to another one that matches. I think I'm going to go with Garden Green because I want to pull some of this color up from there. There we go. Let that dry a little bit, and in the meantime, I'm going to get a little bit of ribbon. Now my place is becoming overrun, so let's take a look for the ribbon. I'm decided I'm going to go with the Just Jade, and I'm going to pull a little piece of ribbon off. And I'm going to just make it like hanging off on the back a little bit. Nothing too fancy, just off like that. Trim the ends so it looks like just like that. And I'm going to get some glue dots and put them on the back of this little wreath. I'm going to roll them up so that they kind of hide underneath. Okay. Just going to couple around and just kind of roll it up. And I'm going to lay that down. Okay. And I will have my dimensionals because I want the sentiment to pop up with the ribbon on top of the gold. So have that up. And I'm just going to put that right in the middle. There we go. And it looks like I just need one more little dot. I don't want that kind of moving around too much on me. So I'm just going to put it right there. Make sure it's all tucked in. And there we go. And there's the card for March. So I'm going to drop that one in there. And let's go on to another one. Okay, let's continue on with our third card. I'm going to grab one of the pieces that is a long strip. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to measure it over here. I'm going to put it on the side where the fold is. So it's going to be off to the side a little bit like this. And it's going to go from the top to the bottom. And I'm just going to glue that down. It will overhang a little bit, but that's okay because I'm going to cut that off, turn it over, and just snip that right off. Now all these little pieces that I've got left over, I will use on other cards. Now I have a nice square here, and I'm going to mat that with white. I'm going to mat that with white on here. And then I just, so that'll go on here like this. So quickly just mat that up. Okay. And I'm going to hear that roughly about that spot in the middle up top. The papers work so well together that you really can't go wrong with any of these patterns. One more sentiment. I need to have a sentiment on here, so let's continue with the same sentiment. And let's go with Tranquil Tide. And if I don't like that color, two pieces. A piece of paper has always two sides, so let's see how that looks. Oh, nice. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use one of the punches. It's a different shape, so let's see. I'm going to put that in there, punch that out, and I'm going to put that thereabouts, right about there. And I'm going to add a bow. So I'm going to make a bow. And then I will just use adhesive dot. That bow was a little bit too big. So the little rabbit ears were too big. So put that again. Make my bow. Guess the bow doesn't want to work with me today, but it's okay. Keep going at it. There we go. Tuck it in. Where'd you go? There we go. And there is the bow. Okay. Gonna add that on with dimensionals. Okay, 1, 2. Don't want it to go away. These are really simple. You could do this with any DSP. Just replace it with anything. Could be Christmas, whatever. Same designs. And off you go. Put on the bow. And there we go. There. Now my bow's a little long, so I'll just tuck that up. There we go. And that goes in for one of the months. So there we go.